morning. My name is John Holtorf, and I'm a lead pastor here at Northern Hills Church. It's great to have you joining us online this week. If this is your first time watching, a special welcome going out to you. We are so glad to have you here. If you're watching on something that has the ability to make comments, say hello to us in the comment section below. We may not be able to see you in person, but we would love to see that you have joined us online. So how's everyone doing? For some, probably extroverts, it may feel like 2 months have passed in the last 2 weeks. And when things seem to drag on, there may be a tendency for us to lose hope. The purpose of this series has been to point us away from fear, anxiety, and worry, and instead point us to Jesus and the hope that we have in Him. In week 1, we talked about having hope. Last week, we focused on becoming hope. And this week, Pastor Brandon will be teaching us about trusting hope. But before we get there, let's take advantage of this time to focus our worship on God and sing praises to Him. And since we're doing this at home, we can do this without wondering if that person in front of us can hear you or not. So let's raise our voices and worship together.
The head that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. The Savior knelt to wash our feet. Now at His feet we bow. The one who wore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. The fear that held us now gives way to Him who is our peace. His final breath upon the cross is now alive in me. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. Our God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
I count on one thing: the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy. All my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. And nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy. All my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will.
Good morning, Northern Hills. My name is Brandon, and I am part of the teaching team here at the church. I want to welcome you to online church. We have been gathering together here digitally over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I want to welcome you that are back with us. I want to welcome those that are joining us for the first time. We are thrilled that you're joining us this morning, and I want to invite you to engage with Facebook. I want you to engage with YouTube, all the platforms that we are using. Comment when you feel it's appropriate through service. This is sort of a season where we're interacting in different ways, so feel free to use those platforms. And I would just say this, hopefully you're enjoying the time that you're getting to spend with your loved ones, with family, those that are closest to you. I know it's a crazy season. This is really our new normal. We're living in unprecedented times. And as I said a couple weeks ago, really nothing's changed. I miss everyone. I miss you all. I am the guy that's invading personal spaces. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a hugger. And so just to not be able to engage with you on Sundays and do a fist bump, a handshake, just checking in, that side hug, I am missing each and every one of you. I find myself praying often for each of our church members and just really engaging with this unusual time. I am speaking right now to an empty auditorium. That's unusual in of itself. There's nobody in here but cameras, our tech people operating all this equipment. So here's what I want to do. I'm looking at you in your living room, at your kitchen table, wherever you're viewing this right now, and I want you to engage, all right? You're going to engage with me on this. Are you excited? Are you excited for the most amazing message that you have ever heard? All right? All right, see, that's a nod of acknowledgement. That's a nod of acknowledgement that I needed. I'm glad you were able to do that this morning. I needed some form of interaction. I needed some form of encouragement. Those of you that know me know that I'm a pretty needy person in general, so thank you. Don't judge me. Don't judge me from your living room. Just appreciated the shout out, the nod. I paid the camera guy to do that, so we're in good shape. These are weird times giving a message to an empty room. But I want us to take a moment to really recognize in this moment that there's some positive things going on. This is pretty cool. Even when we can't meet physically, we can meet through all these means that God has given to us digitally. And it's important during these times. It's important really in these very difficult times because fear and speculation and concern, these are items that are running rampant through our world currently. Some of the most talked about subjects all revolve around questions that we have, unanswered questions that we have about this crisis right now. So we're having conversations, whether it's on social media, on the news. If you're having a personal conversation, hopefully it's 6 feet apart. Keep that social distancing going. But here's what we're asking. Here's what we're talking about. What are the best methods of stopping the spread of COVID-19? We're asking questions like, what are the ramifications of the decisions that we're making right now? And I know those are some of the questions that we have of not necessarily being fearful of the virus per se, but of the financial ramifications, the future ramifications of what are being held for our country. What does this mean for me and my loved ones over the next many weeks, over the next many months? These are all sorts of questions, probably more questions that we're asking ourselves, and especially even that loved ones. When I'm thinking of how school is starting to meet online, what does that mean for my kids? What does it mean for me trying to foster a great learning environment for my kids? Perhaps you've asked this question of yourself during this time. God, why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you doing something? See, when our belief about God's power and His goodness and His love and His generosity, when those clash with the difficult things, the difficult circumstances that we're being faced with now, like job loss, financial loss, loved ones in isolation that we can't reach out to, questions that don't seem to have answers, it begins to make us feel untethered to the belief that we have. We know God's character. We trust God's character, but this also builds up and it cuts into the heart of our innermost doubts and fears when we're experiencing what we're experiencing right now. And Sam spoke to this last week. Our fear, our speculation, our lack of hope, those can be as contagious as the virus itself. People are going to catch what we have. And perhaps now's the time to recenter. Realign with a fundamental of our faith. A fundamental of our faith. If you've put your trust and faith in Jesus Christ, if you call yourself a Christian, I think this morning is going to allow us to get back recentered to a fundamental of our faith that's going to allow others to catch hope and hold on to it during this time. Here's the question I want to ask each of us this morning. What if we took this moment? What if we took this moment to accept what we can't do and trust in what God can and will do? What if we all just paused and took a moment to accept what we cannot do and to trust what God can and will do for us in this time? As I shared, we've been part of this series, this message series. We're in part 3 of that. We've been diving into different perspectives of hope over the last couple weeks. Week 1, we just took time to look at the simple need of having hope. What does it mean to have hope during this difficult hour? What does it mean to have hope? And then last week, Sam brought us to moving from having hope to the place of becoming hope. How do we become hope? And he challenged us to think about our cornerstone, Jesus Christ, when we have Him as the cornerstone, as the foundation of what we look to that allows us to become hope to others. And I want to encourage you to go back and find those messages online if you missed them. This week, I want to give us just a gentle reminder of what it means to trust hope. Now, we've been spending time looking at the high points from the book of 1 Peter. And as you look at the way Peter wrote, he wrote in a very, very direct manner with a group of people that were experiencing crisis as well. And in case you weren't here with us over the past 3 weeks, Peter was writing this letter to first century Gentile Christians. These Christians were facing extreme difficulty. They were facing extreme despair. They were literally being tortured under a very evil emperor named Nero. Now, what history shows us is Nero, among other things, killed his mother. And I just want to pause there. I know being under quarantine in our homes, social distancing from the outer world, being in our inner world, some of you are maybe considering killing a close relative that you've never considered before. You're like, wow, this person's going to drive me mad, and I'm thinking about murder. Please don't do that. Please don't kill that person. But I think, again, this is just a season where we can relate to, I never thought about killing a loved one, and maybe this is the season I might do that, right? Some of us are there. It's okay. We've all been there, I think, in these moments. But this guy did it for real. He not only killed his mother, history shows us that he killed his first wife. History argues that he probably killed his second wife. This was a madman, to say the least. This evil emperor, this evil ruler, the way he was ruling must have created such anguish over the people under his rule. And that's the context. That's the context of which Peter is writing this letter to. So we were in chapter 1, we were in chapter 2. This week, we're going to be in chapter 3. 1 Peter 3, 13 through 14. This is Peter asking the question. He says, who is going to harm you? Who is going to harm you if you are eager to do good? But even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened. Okay. Peter's speaking in a day and age where people are very, very fearful. They would have been in a situation that I think has similarities to ours today. And what I mean by that is they were facing all sorts of significant trials. They were facing distressing times. They had unanswered questions. It would have been easy for those people to be in a posture of doubt and doubting the goodness, doubting the character of Jesus Christ, much of where we may find ourselves living in. And Peter's saying, hey, even if you suffer for doing what is right, don't fear threats. Don't be frightened. And he's making a very bold statement when he's saying that. It's pretty audacious to ask people not to be concerned under the reign of a madman. That's an audacious statement, to essentially take heart in those kinds of times. And I think we can relate, because it can be difficult in our moment to reconcile what we believe about God with what we see right in front of our face. Now, I'm making this part up, but I wonder if Peter felt like I have to give some handles here. I can't just make this brave declaration without giving something to hold on to. And so he adds this nugget. This is so powerful. He says this in verse 15, but in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Revere. In your hearts, revere. And it's so powerful because this is the fundamental to what a Christian believes. Someone putting their faith and trust in Jesus. This is fundamental, that we revere Jesus Christ. What does that mean? What does it mean to revere? It means to set aside as precious, to put front and center, to focus on. A Bible term we hear a lot about in church, it's to sanctify. We are to revere Christ as Lord. In our hearts, revere Christ as Lord. In other words, I think it's deciding once and for all, that my job is not my Lord. Deciding once and for all that my finances, my money and my possessions, they are not my Lord. That specific person that I've put on a pedestal, that I count on for so much, and how their attitude goes affects how my attitude goes. And so I've put my faith and trust in that. No, it's deciding that person is not my Lord. It's deciding once and for all that steps or behavior modification in relationship with God, I'm going to do these things for God. No, you can't do anything for God. He does for us. And so it's deciding once and for all, I'm not going to make that model my relationship with Jesus. No, it's deciding once and for all, revering Christ as Lord. Once and for all, Jesus is going to be the pinnacle of my commitment. Jesus is going to be on the throne of my life. And so Peter's saying, go ahead, revere Jesus Christ as Lord. And then in the next sentence, he says this, always be prepared. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. I believe this is a really, really important statement. I want to tell us why it's an important statement. I believe I can describe that by stating to us what Peter is not saying here. This will be helpful. It was helpful for me. Here's what he's not saying. He's not saying, be ready to explain your Christian worldview in a convincing way. Be ready to argue someone to the faith. Be ready to argue someone into Jesus Christ. He's not saying that. He's not saying be ready to defend the Bible. There are some difficult things to defend in the Bible if you've read all of the Bible. He's not saying that. He's not saying be ready to give an explanation for your church. Be ready to give a defense for Christians who don't behave properly. Be ready to give a defense for the hypocrisy of Christians in previous centuries. He's not saying that. He's not asking us to give a significant explanation of the book of Revelation, where God seems to blow up everything. And hey, what's that all about anyway? How am I going to explain that anyway? That's not what he's saying. He's saying, don't worry about all of that. He's saying this, and this will be helpful. He's saying you need to be prepared to give an answer. And the word answer is actually a little Greek word that also means defense. Be ready to give an answer. Be ready to give a defense to everyone who asks for the reason you have hope. For the hope that you have, be ready to give an answer and give a defense. So what does that mean for us? What should we be prepared to do in these COVID-19 times? How are we going to live that out? I think we need to prepare to accept the things that we cannot do and to trust in what God can and will do. I think it's really as simple, even though that may not be as simple as it sounds. I think it's as simple as that, is that we need to be prepared, that we cannot do everything in this time. We can't do many things in this time, but God can and God will. This is our moment. This is our moment to revere Jesus Christ as Lord. This is our moment to trust in hope. Now, I've had friends and I've had loved ones that have asked me recently, Brandon, what do you think this is going to do to the church? Where do you think the church is going to be? Are you afraid for the church? I mean, if the church can't gather together, if we can't meet physically in buildings, we don't know how long this is all going to last. Is this the end of the church as we know it? What's going to happen? What's going to happen if people really enjoy online church? If they enjoy church in their underwear and they never want to come back to the building, even when we can come back to the building, what's going to happen? And here's what I want us to know. I, like many of you, I have deep faith right now. And I have deep trust. I am putting my hope in a God who's going to do for his church whatever he wants to do for his church. I can't control what the future holds. That's something I can't do. And this pandemic has become a defining moment for many of us because it forces us to look at our limitations as human beings. And that's probably a good thing. We don't know everything. And we can't see into people's hearts and minds and look at their motives. We can't know what has come before us completely, the history of the world. We can't know everything about why that all played out. And we can't see ahead of how all of this and this moment is going to unfold. We can't. But God can. God can. What's going to happen to the church? Here's what I'll tell you. The church isn't going to go anywhere. In my 20 plus years of ministry, whether it's been through a teaching opportunity, a one-on-one conversation, ever since I've started, I've held on to a belief that I believe is being lived out more than ever during these times, and that is that the church is not a building. The church is not a building. The church is not what takes place inside of the four walls. What we must all know and embrace and believe more than ever is that the church isn't a place we go to. We are the church. We are the church. And the message that we carry, the gospel, the good news of Jesus, it's the hope of the world. It's the power of God living in us. It's the power of God using us and telling his story through our story, our local imprint on this North Metro area that we can help shine light in all sorts of places, especially in these times. Some of us, even in these times, no, especially in these times. See, if we can't gather physically, we'll gather digitally, and the good news is still going to spread, and people are going to catch that in our lives. See, I think it's a good time to remind us of something very important. Another question, has God used this time to instill in you what a significant role you play? What a significant role you play as the church. Has he spoken to you on that? Has he spoke to the depths of your heart on that? See, the church isn't about a celebrity pastor. The church isn't about an amazing worship band with all the giftedness and talent that comes together and provides this amazing time of worship. No, Jesus is crafting an epic story. And in this epic story, he allows each of us to play a substantial role. There's no minor characters. There's no bit parts in God's story. And so this is our opportunity to spread to others, to be the ambassadors of hope to others, be that light in the darkness. And you may think, well, practically, how do I do that when I'm just in my house? Practically, how do I do that when I'm socially distanced from everybody? You do that with, first of all, the sphere that is in your house. But why not invite some people online to join us for church online here at Northern Hills? You can share your faith. You can do that on social media platforms. You can do that in conversations. You can share, if it's not about sharing your story in the sense of before God and after God, maybe it's simply how God is providing for you in this moment of fear, in this moment of concern. Maybe it's simply sharing where your rock is, where your foundation is. And so you can tell a story in that way. See, we can shine even digitally. And as the church, be a people that are truly living out daily real love and real purpose and real change. We're all important. There's no bit players in the story. We're all important, but I want us to remember two things can be true here. We are all important, and I think the other thing that's true is what we don't want to forget is that he's still the author of the story. He's still the author of the story. So when we are suffering, when we're ranting and raving about the unfairness that this moment in time is bringing to us, when we can't control all of the choices, even the choices that are being made on our behalf, that we really don't have much say or input in, we would do well to remember that there's so much going on that is outside of our scope. That there's so much more going on that we can't see or understand from our limited perspective. We can't see it, but he can. And he is doing something. Maybe we've only seen a tiny sliver of a much bigger story. Perhaps we're only seeing a chapter. Perhaps we're only seeing a page of God's greater story. And so as the church, as his people, let's be faithful. Let's trust in hope and then be faithful with the opportunities he gives us. Let's go reach the people that no one's reaching. Let's go do the things that no one's doing. What can we do in this hour? We can pray. We can be praying. We can share. We can take what we have and give to those who are in need. And as the church, we can trust hope. We can trust that God can and that he will as we just be faithful to what he presents us with. We can trust that he can and that he will as we just play the part that he's asked us to play. So where's your trust this morning? Where's your hope? Now listen, I want you to know my hope's not in the government. Now, I want to be very clear here. I love to pray for, and I love to support what the government's doing. So I will believe that God is going to give wisdom and discernment to all government leaders during this time. So my hope is in God. It's not in them. My hope is not in doctors. And believe me, all the doctors, all the physicians, all of those who are treating people on the front lines. Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. We will pray for them, but my hope is not in them. My hope is not even in the spiritual leaders that are surrounding our world right now. My hope is the one who spoke things into existence. My hope is in the one who's all powerful, who is all knowing, who's ever present. My hope is in the one who heals blind eyes. My hope is in the one who allows deaf people to hear, who has the power to raise the dead. And I trust and I put my hope in Jesus Christ, the name that is above all names, the name of the one who is soon returning. He's the conquering King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. Who's Jesus? Jesus is the one that's loving us right now. He's the one that's for us. He's the one that's never going to leave or forsake us. He will never let us down. Now, it may not quite be the way we would want things to look or get exactly what we want. Remember, he's still the author, but he's always faithful, no matter how much our circumstances may seem to indicate otherwise. Jesus is my hope because he's my provider, he's my comforter, he's my source, my strength, my redeemer, my rock, my sustainer, my assurance. He's the shelter in times of trouble. He's the light in the darkness. And so I want to encourage you, if you haven't put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, today is the day to do that. Because your hope might be in so many other things, but those hopes that you have, they're not as lasting as Jesus is. Put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, who came to this earth and lived a perfect life, died a brutal death to save mankind from himself, to take on all the sins of the world, all the things we fall short on, and put that on his shoulders and say, I'm dying for my people, but proving he was God then, was buried and rose from the dead 3 days later, proving that he's God, proving that he had a purpose, proving that relationship with his people would supersede everything. And now that relationship's waiting for each of us. So today, if that's just you, I would ask you to even comment right now, I'm trusting hope. Put trusting hope on one of our social media platforms. Trusting hope right now. Add a comment. We want to celebrate with you. We want to cheer what God's doing in the midst of that wherever you are. Trusting hope. Just put that right now. And let our hearts rejoice with those that are coming to know Jesus. And for us that know him, it's our moment to revere Christ as Lord. Let's revere Jesus Christ as Lord, to put him front and center, to decide once and for all that we can't, but he can and he will. And let that be the thing as people are looking to have an answer, as they're looking for us to have a defense for what we believe, for the hope that we have. Let us all say this in unison, that I believe God can. I believe God will. And even if he doesn't, I still believe.
I am weary from the waves crashing over every day. God of mercy, please come rescue me. I am longing for your voice, the gentle whisper in the noise. Father, tell me everything's alright. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. You alone can take my scars. walls apart. Open the heavens, Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. And by your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Oh, shake the mountains, break the walls apart, open the heavens, Almighty God, you are overcomer, defender of my heart. And by your power, the oceans open wide. Your fire falls down, heaven and earth collide. King Jesus, forever by my side. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. Your power, your presence breaks strongholds. King of heaven, when you speak, mountains move. I believe there will be breakthrough. There will be breakthrough.
Did you catch that question that Brandon asked? What if we were to accept what we can't do and trust what God can and will do? How would that change how we approach this season? I know this is something that's going to challenge me this week. See, I love the topic today of trusting hope. This is such an appropriate message for this time. And here's the really cool thing. I know that so many of you are doing just that. One way I know this is true by how you've been involved so much in the Adams County Supply Drive that we've hosted in partnership with Let Your Light Shine. The first supply drive was held 2 Sundays ago on March 22nd. And between the 22nd and March 31st, in 10 days, a total of 79 deliveries have been made, feeding 404 people. Through this, you are hope. Now let's keep it going. Once again, today from 12 to 1 p.m., a team will be here at the church for you able to drive through and drop off your supplies. To find a list of needed items, go to our website, nhills.org, then scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on the Adams County Supply Drive logo, and you'll be able to see the items there. For those of you that are on Facebook, I have a couple of things for you. First, if you live in the local area and you haven't yet joined, I encourage you to join the Love Your Neighbor Adams County Facebook page. This group keeps growing each week and now totals over 1,400 people that are posting needs and posting offers to help. Let's continue to love our neighbors well. Secondly, if you call Northern Hills your church home, I want to invite you to a brand new Facebook group that was just launched this week called Northern Hills Community. This is a space where you'll be able to chat and hang out and get to know the people that normally sit beside you each and every week. In this group, we are going to be hosting Facebook Live events such as Soul Care, coffee convos, worship, prayer, and even some family fun throughout the week. We hope to have you join us there. Finally, during this time, I want to encourage you to give to your local church. If Northern Hills isn't your church home, find one near you to support. If you'd like to support Northern Hills, you can go to nhills.org/give, and there you'll see all kinds of different options. You can give online, you can give through the Secure Give app, or you can give through text to give. If you've never given online, I want to encourage you to go through the simple one-time setup process, and from there forward, it'll be even easier for you to give as you desire. Would you pray with me as we pray over our offering? Father, thank you for the blessings that we've had as a church. God, I pray that as people give, it goes and it's multiplied and it goes to continue the work and the ministry that you've given us, the mission that you called us to be. Father, I pray for those that are continuing to be on the front lines fighting COVID-19. Pray for the healthcare workers and doctors and all that are helping these patients. God, bring healing to our nation and to our world. We pray all this. We lift this all up to you. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, that's all for today. It's great to have you with us. Join us next week for the final week in our series called Hope. We look forward to seeing you then. Take care.